Welcome to the St. Giles Sermon Podcast. This week we are reading from 1 Kings and we are reading from the Gospel of Matthew. Let's begin today in 1 Kings 19, beginning at the first verse. Now Ahab told Jezebel everything Elijah had done and how he had killed all the prophets with the sword. So Jezebel sent a messenger to Elijah to say, "May the gods deal with me, be it ever so severely, if by this time tomorrow I do not make your life like that of one of them." Elijah was afraid and ran for his life. When he came to Beersheba in Judah, he left his servant there, while he himself went a day's journey into the wilderness. He came to a broom bush, sat down under it, and prayed that he might die. "I have had enough, Lord," he said. "Take my life. I am no better than my ancestors." Then he lay down under the bush and fell asleep. All at once, an angel touched him and said, "Get up and eat." He looked around, and there by his head was some bread baked over hot coals and a jar of water. He ate and drank and then lay down again. The angel of the Lord came back a second time and touched him and said, "Get up and eat, for the journey is too much for you." So he got up and ate and drank. Strengthened by that food, he traveled 40 days and 40 nights until he reached Horeb, the mountain of God. There he went into a cave and spent the night. And the word of the Lord came to him. "What are you doing here, Elijah?" He replied, "I have been very zealous for the Lord God Almighty. The Israelites have rejected your covenant, torn down your altars, and put your prophets to death with the sword. I am the only one left, and now they are trying to kill me too." The Lord said, "Go out and stand on the mountain in the presence of the Lord, for the Lord is about to pass by." Then a great and powerful wind tore the mountains apart and shattered the rocks before the Lord. But the Lord was not in the wind. After the wind, there was an earthquake, but the Lord was not in the earthquake. After the earthquake came a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire came a gentle whisper. When Elijah heard it, he pulled his cloak over his face and went out and stood at the mouth of the cave. Then a voice said to him, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" He replied, "I have been very zealous for the Lord God Almighty. The Israelites have rejected your covenant, torn down your altars, and put your prophets to death with the sword. I am the only one left, and now they are trying to kill me too." The Lord said to him, "Go back the way you came and go to the desert of Damascus. When you get there, anoint Hazael king over Aram. Also anoint Jehu son of Nimshi king over Israel. And anoint Elisha, son of Shaphat from Abel Meholah, to succeed you as prophet. Jehu will put to death any who escape the sword of Hazael, and Elisha will be put to death any who escape the sword of Jehu. Yet I reserve 7,000 in Israel, all whose knees have not bowed down to Baal, and whose mouths have not kissed him." We turn now to the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 14, beginning at verse 22. Immediately Jesus made the disciples get into the boat and go on ahead of him to the other side while he dismissed the crowd. After he had dismissed them, he went up on a mountainside by himself to pray. Later that night, he was there alone, and the boat was already a considerable distance from land, buffeted by the waves because the wind was against it. Shortly before dawn, Jesus went out to them walking on the lake. When the disciples saw him walking on the lake, they were terrified. "It's a ghost," they said, and cried out in fear. But Jesus immediately said to them, "Take courage, it is I, don't be afraid." "Lord, if it's you," Peter replied, "tell me to come to you on the water." "Come," he said. Then Peter got down out of the boat, walked on the water, and came toward Jesus. But when he saw the wind, he was afraid and began to sink, cried out, "Lord, save me." Immediately Jesus reached out his hand and caught him. "You of little faith," he said, "why did you doubt?" And when they climbed into the boat, the wind died down. Then those who were in the boat worshipped him, saying, "Truly you are the Son of God." This is the word of the Lord for the people of God. Thanks be to God. Well, our passages today serve as a great reminder. The direction of our attention affects the direction of our lives. I mean, think about it. Elijah has done something absolutely extraordinary. And if you're thinking, what has he done? Well, right before this, in the chapter before, this is where it's helpful to know what happens around, right? Right before this, he's done something extraordinary. He's taken on the prophets of Baal, and he's one guy, and there's 450 of them. And they have this showdown where they declare that their gods are going to beat the living God. And it's epic. We did this in Vacation Bible School a couple of years ago, and the kids talked about it for days. They thought this guy was the guy, right? Because amazing things happened. Fire rained down from heaven and lit this soaked altar. It was crazy. And if you're thinking, what is she talking about? Go to 1 Kings 18. It's a Hollywood spectacular kind of story. And Elijah has lived through that. And it gets kind of gruesome. So it definitely fits Hollywood's storytelling, right? He defeats the prophets of Baal. They're dead. And I know, it's a good time. But it's this epic declaration of God's authority and power and his ability to accomplish great things through God's people. And you'd think that Elijah would be riding a high note, saying, God, you helped me accomplish great things. This was all you. You think he would be riding this note of kind of awe and wonder and excitement to see what God does next. But that's not where we land here. And I don't really blame him. When you think about all the work that he has just done and all of the terrible things that happened, he's probably exhausted. And now he's been threatened by Jezebel. He's been threatened, and he's alone. He's isolated. And what does he do? He runs. He runs scared. He runs into the wilderness. And for many, many days, he's out there struggling. Peter's in a similar situation here. He's witnessed the extraordinary power of God right before this. He just spent the day watching Jesus heal people. And then when they were hungry at the end of the day, Jesus fed thousands. And Peter was part of it. It was a wonderful, fascinating, beautiful, extraordinary moment. And Peter was there as one handing out the dinners. So now when he sees Jesus walking on water and he trusts Jesus is who he says he is, he steps out of the boat. And he makes a few steps, which is probably more than any of us would do, and starts to sink. You'd think that Peter would be absolutely 100% convicted and certain that Jesus said he could do it, so he can do it. Peter gets distracted, and he starts to sink. Your attention and what you pay attention to affects your direction. In the end, Peter was going ahead, and he starts to sink. Being able to redirect your attention is perhaps the thing that I've been thinking about the most this week. Why? It started with a troubling report that hit me. I heard that 10th graders who begin social media before ninth grade are 6 months behind their peers in English and math. That is troubling because it's doing something to us. It's distracting us. We live in what they call the distraction economy, a world in which our attention is monetized. And if you think you're okay because you're not in middle school, and I know there are some of you out there who are thinking, well, this doesn't affect me. Think again, friends. Did you know that 50% of baby boomers spend more than 3 hours a day on their phones? And if you include all of the devices, including TV, they spend up to 11 hours on devices. 20% of baby boomers log more than 5 hours on their phone. And if you think you're off the hook because you're not a baby boomer, think again. Gen X is slightly behind baby boomers. Millennials are ahead. And let's not talk about Gen Z. Digital connectivity has permeated our lives. It is expected now. And we can find all kinds of ways in which technology is demonized, but I want to remind you that it has been a tremendous help to humanity. If you're thinking technology is strictly digital, think again. Agriculture is a technological advancement. The printing press, electricity, refrigerators, and even indoor plumbing are all advances that have helped us do things like defeat disease, increased our wisdom and knowledge. It's helped us to nourish more people, to continue exploration and creation. Technology itself isn't bad, and digital devices aren't bad either. What's bad is distraction. And both Elijah and Peter demonstrate what happens when we lose focus, when we forget our purpose, and we aren't present in the moment the way we should be. The distractions in our lives today tend to pull us from the present into something that isn't quite human. The more we use our devices, the more prone we are to living in a hyper-vigilant state. I was disturbed this week when I found out that we respond to notifications on our phones the same way we do as if someone calls our name. And if you're like me, when you read these studies, you think, did they put people in some kind of brain scan and then shoot all of these sounds out? I'm assuming they did to figure this out. But someone went to great lengths to figure this out. And that got me thinking, no wonder we feel like we're always missing things. Because if you go out to dinner, how many other devices are there in that room, and how many of them are dinging with the exact same sound that your phone makes? We can't be fully present if we're always pulled away. And our life today is designed to pull us away, even those of us who strive to be faithful. Now, Elijah is bogged down and exhausted, and I don't think we can judge him for that. He's having a hard time finding his way through because he's so tired. Peter's tired as well, not as tired, although he might fight me on that, but he's not here, so I can say it. And Peter's definitely more distractible. But one of the interesting things I noticed this week while I was reflecting on these two texts is that Peter is much quicker to redirect his attention when he loses focus. Peter is pulled by the wind. He starts to get afraid and immediately asks for help. He says, "Save me." And Jesus does. Now, Elijah, let's not bring the man down too much. He's in a different situation, but he doesn't ask for salvation. He asks to get out And I want you to remember that one is not better than the other. They're just different. And God doesn't give up on either of them. But what we see in reflecting on these two men and their stories is that it's a lot easier for us. It's a lot less time, a lot less work, a lot less wandering for 40 days trying to find Mount Horeb in the wilderness. If when we lose focus, we just ask for help. Like we can overcome distraction. We can be more present in our lives. We can be intentional in choosing to follow Jesus and choosing to let Jesus direct our path. If we remember, like Peter did, that when we get off track, all we have to do is ask for help, and Jesus will be there with a hand to pull us up and walk us back to that boat. It's interesting when you think about that sea and how wild it would have been. It's an absolute moment of stunning bravery on the part of Peter to have stepped out onto the water. The waves are rolling. The wind is blowing. And it's no wonder he gets distracted in that moment when he thinks, oh my goodness, what is happening? Another thing that I thought was fascinating this week, and maybe you do too when you think about it, is the fact that Jesus saves Peter and doesn't calm the waters until they get back to the boat. We can be distracted and we can ask for help, and those distractions will still be there. But God will be present with us if we ask for help in the midst of it. So as you think about these two different stories, you think about the different men and their approaches to things, I have to ask, what has your attention right now? And what is that doing for your life? What are you focused on? What are you working towards? What distracts you? In this world of doom scrolling, bed rotting, and keeping up with the Joneses, how are you ensuring that you are going where you want to go, where God is leading you? How can you be sure that you are going somewhere with God? If we aren't careful, we will wind up as Elijah did, sinking further and further into the doom. And that happens at times. And while it's not okay, it's normal. And God meets us there as well. Our job isn't to live perfectly. It's to make choices that allow us to perhaps sink less often and try to live confident with God in the midst of all the chaos in this world. And I think that was Elijah's biggest, hardest problem. He wasn't choosing to live confidently, knowing that God would be with him. He was searching for God, but it was more of a lament, you've left me with nothing kind of seeking. We, on the other side of his story, know that he wasn't left with nothing. There were others with him, others in community who were also faithful to God. And we know that he wasn't left alone, that God was with him through it all. He couldn't see it because he wasn't looking for it. He couldn't live his hope because he didn't see there was hope to be had. Peter reminds us we can choose hope even when we make a wrong turn. And that if we look to Jesus, that will impact the direction of the events of our life. May not calm the waves, because Jesus doesn't do that till he's ready, but it will ensure we are walking with Jesus. So let's choose a little more where we put our attention. Let's leave less of that in the arms and the embrace of technology, even our to-do lists, and choose what we want to focus on. Let us choose to see the one who saves. Let us choose to free ourselves from fear, and let Jesus help us walk on water, or whatever it is Jesus wants us to do. Your attention impacts your direction. So what direction are you headed in?